Can you help me? I am looking for Justice Thomas.
I am Mr. Justice Clarence Thomas.
I have some issues about that ridiculous so-called Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission case.
What do you mean, ridiculous?
That Citizens United case is not about citizens. It's about a bunch of corporations incorporated together under a deceptive title, Citizens United. A corporation is property, not a citizen. A corporation does not even have to be owned by citizens. Shares of corporations are bought and sold on the so-called free market system. People from all over the planet buy those shares. Buyers don't even have to be persons. Other corporations can buy shares of other corporations.
I didn't make the rules. The rules were made in 1886 in a case called Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad Corporation. The official reports from that case show that the Supreme Court agreed that the provision in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which forbids a state from denying to any person the equal protection of the law, applies to corporations.
Don't try to razzle-dazzle me. Those notes were written by some corporatist named J.C. Bancroft Davis. That guy was a railroad president. They let him take the notes in a railroad case?
Hey, he was a rich guy wanting to give something back to his country. Donating his time to be a note-taker for his friends and the highest court in the land was a way for him to pay his country back. I think it was a slick idea.
No, it is a sick idea, and so is your so-called Citizens United case. The Roberts V say property, a corporation, has the First Amendment rights of a person. That is just as sick as the Dred Scott case saying a person, a slave, is property with no rights. You guys have a sick problem with property.
You don't just keep nagging and nagging and nagging. At some point it's got to stop. Sometimes, too much is too much. I think we are reaching the point where we are beginning to undermine the integrity of the law. This job is a humbling job. It's the end of the food chain. Some people can do it, and some can't.
End of the food chain? Oh yeah, you sound so humble. Nonsense. The Roberts V are not the end of the food chain. We the people are the end of the food chain. Have you forgotten the Civil War and 13th Amendment which followed that sick Dred Scott case? You were born in Georgia, which was a slave state during the Civil War. If you were born a slave back then, would you have told President Lincoln, during the Civil War, you don't just keep nagging and nagging and nagging? At some point it's got to stop. Sometimes, too much is too much. This Civil War is going to undermine the integrity of the Dred Scott decision. The American Creed states that human rights are endowed in individual persons by their Creator. Corporations are chartered under a state's incorporation laws. A corporation is property and it exists only because of those state laws, not from the act of a creator. For the Roberts V to say the federal Constitution protects a corporation from the laws of the state it was incorporated under, is absurd. The Supreme Court has no grant of authority to do that. Not now or in 1886. It is a denial of states' rights to regulate the privileges granted under that state's laws. It is the tail wagging the dog.
Corporations are owned by people. Look at it like an association of citizens. People have freedom of speech. Therefore corporations have freedom of speech. However, corporations cannot talk. Therefore corporations speak with their checkbooks. I think that is a great idea. Politics is all about talking, and let me tell you, boy does money talk.
Those shareholders can speak for themselves. Just because they own shares and property, that does not magically endow property, or even an association, with the freedom of speech endowed in individuals by their Creator. Besides, it is usually the majority shareholder who calls the shots. That means one shareholder controls those so-called individual free speech rights of all shareholders. That is against the American Creed. Individual rights are unalienable. They cannot be bought, sold, or traded away from individuals. Petitions by associations must be signed by individuals. Good grief! If majority shareholder does not even have to be a person. It can be another corporation from God knows where. You allow some foreign majority shareholder to influence our laws. Listen up. People can own shares and shiploads of manure. But that does not magically endow manure, or the shareholder holding the most manure, an unalienable right to speak manure. That kind of thinking is just a big pile of manure. You claim the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which forbids a state from denying to any person the equal protection of the laws, applies to corporations, right?
I don't make the rules. The Roberts 5 applies the rules.
Well, the Roberts 5 applied those absurd rules to now say the First Amendment protections of an individual's free speech rights applies to property. What comes next?
What do you mean? Next.
You know what I mean. Citizens United is a watershed case and you know it. If the free speech clause of the First Amendment protects corporations as if they are endowed with rights by a creator, then what comes next? The religion clauses?
How could the protection of freedom of religion apply to corporations?
A corporation's existence is devoted, 24/7, to the almighty dollar. If the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause includes corporations because they are associations, then should we expect the Roberts 5 to declare that corporations are the Church of the Golden Calf? You know what I mean, money worship, and therefore entitled to tax-exempt status? And free from regulations under the Free Exercise Clause?
I will ask Mr. Chief Justice Roberts and Associate Justices Scalia, Kennedy, and Alito what they think about that. It sounds pretty exciting. Do you have any more ideas about equal protection of the laws?
Oh sure, if all laws apply equally, then we play no favorites. We cannot be picky over what is equal. Equal is equal, therefore, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 12, of the Constitution, which gives Congress power to raise and support armies, applies equally as well. That means during times of military draft the draft board can draft corporations into the army.
That sounds ludicrous. That is not what J.C. Bancroft Davis, the court, had in mind. We cannot expect corporations to serve the country. Corporations only exist to exploit and make profits.
Just think, a corporation would starve to death on a hero's basic pay. Imagine a grieving CEO being presented a folded American flag, as a symbol of our appreciation for the service of their loved one to our nation.
This is getting nuttier and nuttier.
Hey, I don't make the rules. Equal protection is equal protection. We can't be picky. Besides, the Roberts 5 and that railroad corporatists made these preposterous rules. Don't worry though, corporations cannot be drafted until they are 18 years old because they are still minors. Minors cannot be drafted. Corporations under 18 years old cannot enter into contracts either.
What do you think you're doing?
I am only applying equal protection equally. Blind justice. Now, from your logic, it follows that the 13th Amendment, protection against involuntary servitude, slavery, frees all corporations from being bought and sold on the free market system. In other words, free my corporate persons.
How far do you think you can take this equal protection thing? That is outrageous.
Hey, you don't just keep nagging and nagging and nagging. At some point it's got to stop. Sometimes, too much is too much. Besides, it was not me who pierced the corporate veil. You guys cut an opening for the mouth of the association to speak. That's the Roberts 5 doctrine of corporation rights of an individual, without individual responsibilities. Well, rights and responsibilities walk hand in hand. Since you exposed the mouth of the association, then when those lips move, liability should equally be shoved down their throats just like all other individuals. You guys just want to have your cake, and eat it too. The Roberts 5 cut the veil which protected those associations from liability. These associations hurt many people and now since they want unregulated rights they should be held individually responsible.
But the whole idea of buying stock in a corporation is to make a profit without being individually responsible for the bad deeds of the corporation.
But the whole idea behind that was that individuals can debate congressional powers to regulate and tax the stream of commerce. The Roberts 5 blew the dam which guarded against the global corporate roar of legalized bribes influencing our debate. Bottom line, all Americans must now demand all candidates to answer up. Do you support an amendment nullifying the Roberts 5 assault and prohibiting for-profit corporate lobbying, bribes, or are you a global corporate sympathizer?